Hi Hawks, welcome to day 3, talking about value with Mr. Johnson. On our first day, we talked about making our value scale and figuring out how to make the range of light to dark values. On our second day, we started thinking about these expert level value skills that might be a challenge, but could turn out with some cool results on your drawing. Remember, these skills that we practiced are an option. If you feel good for a challenge, if you feel comfortable with them, go for it. If that's not the case, you skip them. So, we're drawing on paper. It can be notebook paper, it can be a cardboard box, it can be a piece of copy paper. One thing we have probably all figured out is shading takes a long time. Lots of little marks, lots and lots and lots of little marks. So, we want this to be smaller so we have less work to do. Little origami skill, I'm going to take a corner where a long edge and a short edge meet. We're going to take this corner and fold it up here so we have a triangle and these edges match up. Basically, all this extra strip over here can go away. You can do that a couple of different ways. You could rip it off, which probably won't work very well. I would just take this, fold these edges so they match up, tuck it back over here, voila, smaller piece of paper. If this part bugs you, cut it off. But if you want to go with a smaller square, that is totally cool. So here's what our project is going to be. This is going to be a way that you're going to demonstrate how well you know your value skills. We're just going to use shapes and we're going to show some overlapping, and here we go. To keep it simple, Mr. Johnson, I think I would like to put a box in the middle. So I'm going to throw a shape in, and after I throw that shape in, I'm going to fill this entire shape with some kind of value. If you remember on our value scale, we weren't too picky about filling in the whole shape. We left those little gaps along the edges. Not so on your project. So I'm going to come in and possibly over here on the old scrap piece of paper with my nicely sharpened pencil, we're going to dull that edge just a little bit of scribble so we get a nice flat surface. And on my square, my first shape, I'm going to come in just like we know how to. We're going to use short back and forth lines. We're going to avoid the temptation to scribble. Even though scribbling is faster, scribbling doesn't look good at all. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to work in these rows with short back and forth lines or small overlapping circles. My goal is to fill in this shape with the smoothest, most consistent value that I possibly can. And I want it for this first one just to be the same value all the way through. Again, it is tempting on a little bit larger section to start to make big swirls or big scribbles. Do the best you can to remain disciplined and force yourself to keep them the same. This is not a bad time to put some music on and kind of zone out and get into the groove of this repetitive motion. Now you guys will notice I missed some spots. It's a little imperfect here. That is when, after we've done a first pass on the shape, we can come back in and we can do a little bit of touch up. Remember, our goal is not to darken the shape, but our goal is if there are any places where it looks a little bit darker compared to a little bit lighter, or oh my goodness, I missed a spot, then we come back in and we fill it in. Now, this project is going to feature a combination of shapes and forms and simple, basic beginner value shading, as well as some of those expert level skills if you want. So there is my first shape. Ta-da, it has a value in it. Next, with my pencil, I'm going to draw a second shape. It could be another square, it could be something different. With my second shape, I want to draw it so it has the illusion that it is behind the first shape. So I'm going to do a circle just because it's simple. And I'll draw my circle so that part of it is tucked behind the square. Now I'm going to fill this in with a value. The only requirement is I don't want the same value in here as I have here. So dark values are easy. So I'm going to push down hard and I'm going to fill this circle in so that it appears that the circle that is behind the box has a darker value. And they're going to give our brain the impression that there is overlapping. Boxes in front, circles in the back. Next, another shape or another form. This time I'm going to do a little more irregular organic shape, and I have a nice flat edge on my pencil. That's going to set me up to do a lighter value. And again, with the lighter value, it's tempting to go really sketchy. With my lighter value, I really have to concentrate and keep those marks short. So our whole goal is we're going to fill up the majority of the page with a variety of shapes. We want our shapes to appear that they are stacked on top of each other, or they are overlapping each other. And we want to demonstrate that we have value skills so that we can shade them in successfully. Now, if you want to get a little bit advanced, let's say there happens to be a triangle hanging out back here. With my triangle, if I want to, I can show a gradient or an ombre or a fade. So perhaps I start here with my darkest value, and over the course of the length of the triangle, I'm going to get gradually lighter and lighter. I want to have a nice smooth transition. And again, where my triangle meets up with the other shapes, I would really like to have at least some variety. It's a little bit lighter here compared to here, definitely lighter here to here. We don't want to have the same value up against different shapes. Now let's say I'm feeling super advanced and I wanted to throw a circle back over here. Last time we were together, we talked about doing a highlight and shadow. So we imagine that the light source is closest to the highlight and the darkest part is farthest away. We're not going to draw a light source on here, so we're just going to kind of imagine that there's a light source. So I'm going to imagine that the darkest part is over here and the light source must be somewhere over here. So on my sphere, I start out with my darkest value. Just like we practiced, I'm working in this kind of crescent shape or a big capital letter C because I want to show the contour or the roundness of that sphere. So then my value is gradually going to lighten. Again, I'm really trying to think hard about keeping my values smooth, keeping my marks small, and when the value from this sphere comes over and touches the box and touches that black circle, I want to be able to tell the difference between them. Again, I've got some rows. It kind of does a jump from my black to my gray, so I just come back in and I give that a little bit more attention and try to soften that up. Okay, if I want to get like super extra tricky, maybe I'm going to throw a kind of three-dimensional looking shape coming out from behind the box. And you don't have to do one of these. This is up to your drawing ability level. This is up to your comfort level. Now I could draw this pretending there was a light source, or I could look at this as a three-dimensional appearing shape that actually has three separate shapes to work with. The simplest way is just go three separate shapes. So I'm going to choose to color this in solid. Nice pure black side on the edge of the box. And maybe over here I'm going to do a fade or an ombre. So I'm going to start out here in the corner and gradually come across the shape with a variety of values. When I get to that corner, I want to be at my lightest value. And again, if we have rows and rows and rows, we come back in and we just soften up. And let's say up here, I just wanted to do a light gray value. You guys may use any shape you want. You're going to use an assortment of shapes. Or if, Mr. Johnson, I'll be honest, I really like squares. I'm going to do my whole project using squares. That's perfectly fine. That's up to you. That is the beginning of our project. One shape, fill it in with a value. Second shape looks as if it is behind the first shape, filled in with a different value. Next shape is behind or underneath the adjoining shapes. Here is our end goal. I have my square, and my goal was to fill up the majority of the page. You'll notice, yeah, I didn't fill in all of the background. but you guys can tell based on the way that I have demonstrated overlapping. This circle was the first shape, then I added this kind of ring of different shapes. I have some that are filled in with a solid value. I have some that are filled in with a lighter solid value. I have some that have the appearance of being a multiple-sided shape or a three-dimensional shape. And I have even included a recognizable shape. You guys may fill in your page with any assortment of shapes as long as there is a variety of values, and we can understand the illusion of each new shape looks like it is fitting in behind a previous shape. A quick word about our friend Bart here. All right, you are welcome to draw as complex or as simple a shape as you want. With Bart, I put in a variety of values. I tried to go as light as possible on his skin. I chose to do 2 separate values with his eyes because remember, we don't want to have the same value in one shape next to the same value in another shape. You can reuse values. I have my pure black here and I have my pure black over here, but we want to keep those separate shapes separated by different values. Just in Bart's head alone, I counted 16 different spaces to include value. So it's fun to include specific shapes or specific images, but it's a lot of work. So I would recommend including an assortment of simple and complex shapes. And like I said a minute ago, Mr. Johnson, I really like squares, so I'm only doing squares is a perfectly acceptable way to do this. As always, you guys can email me questions. We will have our optional Zoom meeting on Thursday where you can show me how your work is going or you can ask for assistance. And this is the assignment for the week. As we are used to also, on Friday, you're taking a Flipgrid video and you'll turn in your work and you will show me how good your value drawing skills are.